One Swoop, it's Take the Plunge, a podcast about how business owners decided to stop what they were doing and took the plunge to start their own businesses. We take a look at how they came to that decision and what those first crucial steps were in getting their businesses up and running. My name is Ciaran and I'll be your host for this episode. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Pamela Laird, founder of MoxiLoves. Pamela launched her own beauty brand, MoxiLoves, where the purpose is clean, clever and affordable products. Making everything easy to use and convenient was Pamela's main goal to make beauty products accessible to all. Everything is cruelty-free and environmentally responsible. The target audience is the modern woman, with all the products being made for everyday, easy use. MoxiLoves can currently be purchased in Pennies or Primark if in the UK and Boots, but there's also stores launching in the UK, Denmark and Spain. You're very, very welcome, Pamela. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm great today. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. It's Friday, so always a bit happy on a Friday.
Definitely, there's that Friday feeling for sure.
So Pamela, I understand beauty and cosmetics is something that's kind of come from a family background. So is it something that's always been a passion and been around for yourself?
Definitely. I think if I think back to both my parents, they both had their own businesses. My dad sold cars. My mum had a beauty salon. I definitely drifted towards the beauty. While I do still like cars, I tell you, after school, if I was going anywhere, I wanted to be the salon. So I used to find myself there, and I loved the products especially. I think I was always really interested in what was new and merchandising them, and I just really connected with the beauty side. While my mum was really big into service part of the industry, I definitely loved the retail, the products, and I would love selling them as well. Like I started quite young there. So I think, there was a huge connection to beauty from the start.
And so were you in the store early doors, selling stuff, seeing what was working, what customers liked?
Definitely. And I used to help her source products. So we'd go to trade shows and stop and see what was new and different. And I really enjoyed that part. And I think my mum was always at the forefront of like new innovation. So she would bring things in that maybe weren't in other salons at the time. And we would do like Ireland AM, like a TV show in Ireland. And
very cool.
So she had like a regular slot on that at the time. So I think I just saw how innovative that part of it could be. And just how it's fun, when there's something new and different and exciting. So, I was there from a young age after school.
And like, how long into it do you realize, or did you just always know I'm going to start something, or did it kind of come to you after a certain period of time?
I think I always knew. I mean, I think back to school and how disconnected I was from the CAO and college and pretty much anything to do with the university. I was like, no, I don't want that. I don't care. I want to start a business. So in my final year in school, I had meetings arranged. So I basically had, for my kind of 6th year before my exams, I had set up a nail bar in House of Fraser. So we opened the week after my debs. So that was my first business. And that was like in the making a long time. It's just what I always wanted to do. It was never really, there really wasn't another option.
That's so impressive. Like, because particularly, I suppose, obviously you can hear I'm Irish as well. Like the school system is very much driven towards go to university. So it obviously was a pretty strong personality trait that you were just like, no, I am getting this business up and running and I can do everything simultaneously. Like that. Did you find that people were looking at you oddly?
Definitely. I think it was unusual, and I suppose seeing it, you can believe that you can do it. So seeing both my parents do it, it felt, well, I can do it too. So for a lot of my friends, I suppose they didn't have that necessarily. So that didn't seem like an option. It was always just go to college. Doesn't matter what you do, just do arts in UCD and you'll be fine. That was kind of the mentality at the time. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm out of here. And I remember one of our mock oral exams or something was changed. And I was like, excuse me, like I have a meeting. Like you can't just change things last minute. My friends were like, Pamela, sit down. So I was definitely getting a few looks for sure.
Oh, amazing. And talk me through the nail bar in House of Fraser. How did that come around and what happened to it?
Yeah, it was interesting. So at the time, products, like I said, became a big thing for my mum and her business. So she started distribution of a brand that was just launching in the UK. So she took over the Irish distribution for it. And there was an opportunity to open a nail bar with that brand as the front. And I had qualified in third year in school doing nails. That was where I sort of drifted to within beauty. And my mum was more skincare and I was just really into nails. So I did all my qualifications and spent a lot of time after school doing other people's nails. So by the time I was finishing school, I had already started becoming the national trainer educator for that brand in Ireland. So I would travel around to all the nail salons and spas and teach the nails. So then it was like, okay, I want my own nail bar and here's a great opportunity to partner with have the front of the brand that we actually distributed and do it within House of Fraser. It was just a great opportunity. So it was kind of obviously helped by my mum obviously at the time, but it was totally me that was running it 12-hour days.
What would you say, like, are a couple of the things that like you took away from that kind of first foray into your own venture and having to do those 12-hour days?
I mean, a lot. I think what I didn't realise, and in hindsight, as I looked back on my mum's business and as I was in my own at the time, people always wanted me. And as I started to excel in the nail world, I started to do a lot of photo shoots and covers and celebrities. I was less and less available in the nail bar, but people wanted me. And it was difficult. So I had this vision of scaling. And while we expanded the space within House Fraser successfully, I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to scale this with everyone kind of pulling out of me. And what do I really want? And as it grew, I started to become a manager of people. And my passion for nails had kind of gone because I was no longer able to do them the way I had been. And I thought, okay, what I love and what business I want is not necessarily going to be the same thing. And that's when I realized I don't want to be in a service-based business. I want to scale and I want something that doesn't require my physical body to be there to grow. So I took a step back. We were there for 4 years and I decided to pull the plug and start another business. Yeah.
And was your next business MoxiLoves, or did you go into something else before?
So I was headhunted to start another nail bar in Dublin Airport. So that was kind of like my hiatus while I could think about my next step. So I thought, okay, perfect opportunity. I actually was working the 2 jobs, so 5 a.m. in the airport till 1 o'clock and then going into House of Fraser for a while. So that was a bit of a mad time. But eventually I fully committed to the airport and then I was able to sort of get a bit of headspace and think about what I wanted to do. That period of time, I realized I never wanted to work for anyone else in that capacity again. So I knew that was for a fact. I was going to do something on my own again. And I just started thinking about, well, what can I do? What do I enjoy, but that doesn't require me? And I started to think about products and how I loved bringing new and innovative products and what did I think wasn't out there and how could I create that?
That's a pretty seismic task. So how does one go about doing that? And like, what was kind of the length of time it took you to, I suppose, start some of that research and break it down into something that was starting to shape MoxiLoves?
It's hard to say. I think everything happened at the one time. So I was looking at products and I was thinking, okay, I want 10 products. And then I slowly realized, or maybe it was quickly, that, my minimum order quantities were like catastrophic for innovative, new and different products. It wasn't like I could order 10 or 20 and see how it went. That wasn't a possibility. So I was like, okay, we need to go with one product. So I thought, okay, what is the one that I think could stand out the most, would be the strongest and, the most applicable? What do we want to start with? So I whittled it down to one. And then I spent the next few months trying to source the manufacturer. So that took a while, like samples on samples on samples. I ruled out Ireland. No one here could make it. The EU, no one could make it there. So it was the Far East. So I was going through manufacturers. And eventually I didn't quit my day job, which I think is really important because you don't have to go all in until you're ready. And I think that allowed me to get it right. I kept it going.
And then I suppose, interestingly then, what was that all-in moment where you felt like, I've done the research, I've got the manufacturer in place? Like, what was that transition period between, I can now leave the security of the job and go all in?
It's hard because I had finished up in the airport, but I was doing a lot of freelance work because my nail career sort of took off a bit more when I was freer. And so I've never really left that because I think that's kept a foot in the door of the industry. And I think it's really important to be in the industry you're targeting, because if you close yourself off and you're in an office, you're not connected with what's new and what's coming. So I've always tried to keep a good balance between, and it's fun. That work for me, to me, is fun, and it's allowed me to have my passion for nails again without, being tied to a salon, all day. So I never really left that, I'm being honest. But it isn't a financial secure necessarily. It's more just my hobby I get paid for. So, but I think there came a time where I think it was after I did Dragon's Den, and it took off, and I realized, we can't just have one product anymore. In fact, we're selling out of that product. It's going to take a few months to get the next. I need to focus here. And that was hard because I was trying to play catch up because I kind of had been, doing a lot at one time.
Yeah. And when you're selling a product, there's so many aspects to it. One, you have to source the product, then you have to get it manufactured. You've got the lead time. You need to be happy with how it's manufactured. You then have your marketing elements, depending on what channels. It's going to be on social, it's going to be online, it could be in trade, it could be wholesale, and then you have to study all the numbers behind what's going, what's happening, where my sales at. That's a stupid amount of hats. Where were you being able to, where did you felt you kind of had strengths, and where were the areas that you were going to have to learn as you go?
So I had a big lesson to learn. Everything went wrong. I mean, listen, we had a minimum order quantity of 60,000 units. We ordered them. I was like, it's going to take forever. Okay, fine. It did kind of take forever, but then all of a sudden, 60,000 were at the dock, and I was like, I have nowhere to put them. I don't even have anyone to buy them yet. I was emailing people. Everyone was ignoring me. I was like, right.
Where did you put them?
So it was delivered. Half of it was delivered to my house. Half of it was delivered to my mum's salon. The people who were delivering the pallets we're like, no, take the pallets back. We've nowhere to put them. We were breaking down pallets. It was wild, and they were under my dining room table, they were in my bedroom, there was boxes everywhere. So that is very much how we started. And I think what I didn't realize was it was really hard I had this vision of B2B. So I wanted to sell into Primark, I wanted to sell into pharmacies, and that was where I saw the brand going. Online hadn't really taken off at that stage, and I wasn't really looking at it properly. And our price point was quite low, so we needed volume. So everyone was ignoring me. So I was like, grand, I'll just start what I know, which is marketing and PR. So I said, let's get these into pretty envelopes. I know a lot of people. I didn't say it was me, but I knew who the right people were to send it to. So I wasn't signed Pamela. I literally sent the product out. And it was at a time where Instagram was so authentic and genuine, where people would just like something and take a photo of it and just put it on the grid. I know. So my product was it was actually called Eye Catcher, and it was extremely eye catching. It was pink. It really stood out, and it looked like an interesting product. So, overnight people were sharing it on social media. People were looking for it. And right around the same time, I sent it to the Primark buyers. And I sent it to a distributor, because then I slowly realised that, the reason the pharmacies are ignoring me is because they don't want to deal with Pamela, who lives wherever. They want to deal with their customer they're used to dealing with. They're already invoice set up. It's secure for them. So I realised that was my way into trade, basically. So if I wanted to deal with Primark and pharmacies, I would need a distributor. And so it had a bit of uplift on social media. People were talking about it. It was in print magazines, because I have all those connections from my nail work. So it was everywhere. It was great. And then Primark replied, we're like, yeah, we love it. The distributor was like, let's go. And it really did just take off from there.
Boxes weren't very, very much then all of a sudden.
They went very quickly. And then right around the same time, I was like, okay, this is kind of growing, and I need money. So I was like, where will I get it? And I'm a big fan of Dragon's Den. So I was like, sure, let's see. That could be a cool way to get money and publicity. So that was pretty quickly after we launched. We launched it to Primark in December. I think I filmed Dragon's Den in February.
And well, talk me through that in terms of, do you feel, I'm just curious in terms of impact on product sales, and then secondly, as a source of money, do you feel it was a good amount for what you needed, and the deal you got, was that good now in hindsight?
So I didn't take the deal. Actually, I only came across the contract the other day.
You just maxed out the publicity.
So I shook on screen. Now, in fairness, it wasn't my intention. I shook on screen. I got 3 dragons.
There's so many people we've chatted to on this podcast that have done this in the direct market.
I mean, no, look, I actually did need the money. That is one thing that didn't change. But when I met the dragons after the show, so there's a lot of due diligence that happens. You don't shake on screen and then everyone signs and you get the check. That's not what happened. So we filmed it. We started to meet. One of the three dragons never came to one meeting, so I was kind of getting an insight into my future. We can't get three people together.
You got three dragons.
I got three dragons, yeah.
Oh, pretty good. Which ones?
I actually can't remember them all now. Well, I did the Irish one, so mine was the last season. So it was Gavin Duffy, Chanel McCoy, and then a lady from Northern Ireland. I can't remember her name, but three.
Well, one of them didn't show up, so.
One of them didn't show up. And then I realised that they were sort of seeing this as a different opportunity. So I needed the capital, but I felt very capable of scaling. And they were sort of like, we could change the name, we could make it a different colour. And I was thinking, okay, it's not really what I need you for. And I thought, okay, one isn't showing up, we're on different pages, this is not going to work. And I sort of waited until it aired, because then, of course, I got other offers. And so I took another offer off the back of the show airing.
Yeah. And but in terms of impact of like on the sales, the demand, that lovely.
Huge impact. And not just that, I think it really pushed, it was right around the time where people were really interested to know who's behind the brand. You could start to see people becoming the face of their own brand, which was really not my intention. As far as I didn't name it after myself. I wanted it to scale without me. That was my goal from day one. I wanted it to be separate to me with my expertise, but not about me. Because I thought if we go into America or Australia, I don't want to have to sell myself everywhere I go. No. It's not about me.
It's kind of like the lesson you learned the first time round.
Exactly. Totally. Yeah, I was like, it's not going to be me. But then this whole trend of who's behind the brand, how does it work? And so then I started to get a more of a business. People were starting to take me seriously in business, and then people wanted to know about me. And that came, like, local enterprise office took an interest. So there was all this other stuff that came off the back of Dragon's Den that probably never would have happened because I was so in the background of it. And look, it only aired a couple of times for 1 hour. I think we were like 11 minutes of that. So you have to remember, it is a drop in the pan in a way. Like, it's not... there isn't longevity in it, but we definitely noticed a huge uplift in sales after.
And then how did you manage that? Like, because obviously you had the scenario whereby 60,000, right, I'm sick in half of my gaff and half of my mum's salon. I'm going to try shift these. All of a sudden, I can't keep up. How did you manage with that?
So the offer that I got off the back of the show was from one of my distributors, and they were interested in helping me fund the stock so that not have it convert to equity, but to help me in a way that could manage that process. So they took a little bit of the risk on as well. Like, obviously it was partly my risk, but it was a way to help me. Now they wanted to take on a lot of the logistics and management, which they weren't really able to do because it's very different ordering from a brand, as I learned, and making it yourself. So a lot of that I did pull back and I did myself, but they were able to financially help me fund the stock, which was a great way to scale at that time.
And in terms of that kind of then, did that start you on a funding journey for different kind of finance strategies, or was that enough to kind of get you up and running and get you to the place where you are today?
Yeah, and I think this is a real point that I look back on, and I think I was very comfortable in that scenario. And what I should have probably realised was that was probably the time to traditionally fundraise. But I started all my businesses from a perspective of you just start a business and you grow. I had no idea of the startup train that there is, the local enterprise office, the funding in Enterprise Ireland. Like, it's almost like you start that way and you go through and get everything that you can. I had a bank loan from Bank of Ireland for 50 grand, a stocking loan, like a very traditional way to start, probably a non-traditional business. And I didn't know about most of the traditional fundraising elements until maybe 2 years in business at least. So I missed out on a lot of things. And I think looking back, that would have been prime time to fundraise. But I was very comfortable in the fact that, I don't have to give away any of my company, and here's this company buying my stock. But what it didn't do, and what I should have realised, was partnering with a local distributor who supplies Ireland. When you have visions of scaling, they're not interested in that because they're not going to be getting a slice of that. So it limited my growth, and I didn't even see it at the time because I was so happy with what was happening. But they weren't able to supply the other markets. And I didn't know that. I suppose if I thought about it properly, I would have. But it was very comfortable.
How long into that did you? Because you're probably like, oh Jesus, I've absolutely nailed it. The park launched the products, got huge demand. I'm really killing it. But at what point did you realise actually feck, I need to, but my true aspiration is to get this into loads of other places that isn't just Ireland. How long was that kind of period?
I think when we launched into Primark UK, I realised how badly managed it was, and I was paying there was commission on both ends if I needed someone in the UK, and I thought, oh, I'm going to face this wherever I go, because if they hold my stock, how am I going to export properly? So it was then that I realised that it was time to part ways, and right around the same time, probably the biggest bombshell in the business. I hope it'll be the worst thing that ever happens, but the EU decided to ban single-use plastics in cotton buds, and our product at the time was a liquid-filled cotton bud for tidying up your eye makeup. And it was because a photo circulated of a seahorse gripping a cotton bud. An underwater photographer took it, it went completely viral, and within 2 weeks the EU had completely banned plastic. Now, they gave 2 years to phase it out, but consumer perception was instant. Was not good. I mean, our genius product overnight became the devil wrapped in plastic, essentially. God. So it was around the same time. What did I do? Well, I didn't cry, but I was close. It was really hard because I had started to launch new products, but then I realised, okay, wait, I need to leave this partner that I no longer serves me or the brand. I did that. And then I said, okay, we need to come up with products that not only are going to look at legislation today, but legislation in 5-10 years time. So I really sat back and I thought, okay, it's not sustainability for the sake of it, but it raised awareness to me what happens to cotton buds. So I want to know what happened to everything. I want to know everything about everything. And that started my research into wet wipes and how 97% of blockages in the sewers in the UK are wet wipes. And, 40% of a wet wipe is made of plastic and never biodegrades. All these things. So I was like, okay, let's try and make something better. So that's just one of our products, but all the way through our products, we're waterless. And by 2025, 5 billion people will face water shortages. So by taking the water out sustainably, it put us in a great position of where the future of beauty is going. So that really gave me time. But it was a terrible time, not going to lie. Our hero product, we just scaled into the UK. It was over. The rug was really pulled from under me instantly.
Yeah, but you really silver-lined it because it gave you a catalyst to start looking at the supply chain and looking for opportunities in that. So I suppose as the rug was being swiped, where did you start to navigate to, and where did you kind of feel the kind of next product landed in terms of kind of where your audience was?
Yeah, so I kept our thinking of convenience and innovation and married it with waterless basically. And we were quite early. I knew the technology we were using, with a powder face wash. People were like, what is that? And I knew that it was coming, and you see it everywhere now. But at the time, I knew we were early, but I hoped that we could be one of the first movers. And that was sort of my theory, that it's hard to educate people as an indie brand. You don't have the big budgets, you don't have the marketing spend. But I knew the innovation was there, and the innovation it has always been easy for me to get listings in retail stores, because I bring them something that they're excited about. The buyers see the same thing all the time, but if you bring them something new, they'll want you on their shelf. And our strategy was still omni-channel. We were online, but we were definitely heavy in retail because we needed the volume. And then I realized, so when I needed the money the first time, I still need the money now. And again, if I could talk to my younger self, you have this big ambition, you're going to need the money to scale. You don't wait till you're there to raise it, for God's sake. If I could tell myself one thing. But anyway, you want to prove it too. As a founder, you really don't want to take someone else's money to go and see if it works. So anyway, look, hindsight. But I thought about, a friend of mine said, well, what about Dragon's Den or The Apprentice? And I said, The Apprentice? Sure, I don't want a job. And she was like, no, it's investment. It's amazing. And I'd never watched it.
Yeah.
And I thought, sure, let me know when the applications are open. She sent me an email and was like, they're open. So I just submitted the application. I was like, we'll see what happens. And my audition was today, 4 years ago. It just came up on my phone. So I went, and 3 auditions later, and anyway, I ended up on the finals. I think 80,000 people applied, and I ended up in the final 16.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And again, similar to say Dragon's Den, did you notice a huge impact on the just
massive? And I think the difference between Dragon's Den, you're on people's screens for 1 hour.
You're coming at them every Wednesday.
It's a full hour. It's prime time slot. It's BBC One. It's the UK. Far bigger market than Ireland.
Yeah.
Huge show. Big fans. People love the show. And people get to see you, I suppose, for a few weeks before they even know what your business is.
Yeah,
so I'm
curious, sorry to interrupt there, on that, because like a lot of the show, only until maybe that last interview episode or so, you very rarely get to show off actually what it is you're trying to do as a business. It's all about you. Yeah. So are you thinking like, my head's in the game, obviously need to get the end goal to show off the business, or are you trying to weave the business in different episodes? Like, what was your thinking there?
You know what, it's funny because I think I had this thought I thought I would be fired really quickly because I'm not really confrontational. Well, maybe other people tell you different, but I try not to be. I don't really work well in teams. I'm an only child. I don't have experience in, like, I've worked for myself, by myself. So I was worried about how far I would get. And I thought, well, look, let's just go for it. It's a great opportunity. And I didn't realize, like, I was there for 12 weeks. Like, I'm in every episode. Amazing. And so the poor 2 Irish this year got fired, like 1 and 2. I felt really bad for them because it can happen. You don't know. So I didn't really have a game plan. What I was really worried about was because I had a consumer facing brand, people can hate you when you're on TV. And unlike Dragon's Den, my pitch was completely rehearsed. Like, I went to the communications clinic and I did a pitch, like a TV ad. That was my goal. That was really controllable. Like, weirdly, even though you think it can't be, it's actually really easy to control it if you work with someone good. But The Apprentice, you're on all the time. You can't do anything. You have to be yourself. So I was like, just be yourself. Don't let yourself down, was really what I was thinking, because you have a product and people need to like you. And if people hate you, they're not going to buy your product. So that was really my only game plan. And obviously I knew I'd get torn apart in the interviews. So whether people might have liked me then and been like, oh, they're being mean to her, which is kind of what happened. Instead of going, her brand is terrible.
Having gone through that, like, how then did you manage with that much bigger groundswell coming at you and the brand and the product? Like, how did you manage that?
I mean, it was huge. The response was huge. And I think what I was criticised most for in the interview process at the end was just that I had so few products. And I felt like, oh, I know, it's true. We should be much further along, but for the blip we had with the original product, and it's unfortunate. So I was like, okay, by the time I'm fired, the day I'm fired on air, I will have my 3rd product. And we launched online. We sold out completely. The website hits were insane because it was pre-recorded. So I was watching it from London on my laptop and I was like, oh my God, people are ordering. So it was amazing. The product really took off. Yeah, it just was. I just felt so happy with how, like, well I had kind of tried to make my loss work for me, for the business.
Well, I mean, that's seriously making it work for you. And I suppose then at that time, did you use that? Were you in a position there where you didn't need funding because you were able to leverage the back of the interest, or did you use that again to maybe look at the fundraising scenario?
That was when the first time I really considered fundraising, and I'd met with Enterprise Ireland after I filmed the show. And I was really targeting myself on LinkedIn, hoping to find maybe an angel investor or somebody who'd watched the show who might be interested. So I was trying to do everything I could in the business space, sharing all of our wins. We're launching to Boots UK, 400 stores, all of these things I was trying to go. And I did get a lot of interest, and I had just started. So it finished airing December 2019. So I spent a huge amount of early 2020 in the UK meeting with investors, and I thought, okay, this is it. And then COVID, which was great.
Deadly, isn't it?
So, I mean, the reason I wanted to fundraise is because I had the ambition to scale. So while I didn't technically need it at that time, like, I was on the edge of needing it if any big deal came in. But then,
before, like, take advantage of the timing.
Exactly. And it is a very small window of time. Like, you're famous for 5 minutes, so you need to maximize it. And then, COVID just came in and... well, it came for everyone.
And on the COVID side of things, because I suppose were you still quite heavily retail as opposed to being quite an online brand in
completely.
In that scenario?
Like, our products were under €10. We didn't translate online. Like, it was always my goal to sort of creep up the price point a bit, add value online exclusives. Like, it was part of our brand pitch. We didn't get there. Like to post one of my products would cost almost the same as the product itself for the buyer. We couldn't add value online. So we launched into Boots the day the UK locked down into 400 stores. And sure, some of the skincare aisles were closed off. It took us months to get online because they were prioritizing OTC. And so my 5 minutes from the show had completely died. You know, we'd launched party plans and that was all over. So it was just about reacting. So Amazon was our first point of call because I thought, well, look, we'll get on there. The Prime delivery, it may be hurting our bottom line, but at least we'll get into customers' hands. So that was fine. We did Amazon, Germany, the UK, Italy, and then eventually got onto Boots online and just really tried to grow that space. But it killed our volume business, it was difficult.
Oh, and so then, like, having gone through that other hammer blow, having got the EU blow, what was the plan? Kind of having gone through that, did the slowly but surely getting onto Amazon, Boots Online, did that now give you a new platform that they kind of de-risked what was quite heavily retail, or actually just COVID going away helping? What
it took COVID going away. I think because we were in that new waterless space, as I mentioned, it was very new. So we definitely tried to push what everyone imagined as being an advantage of waterless, which was travel. So like if there's no liquid, you can take it with you in your gym bag. You know, that was our main USP while we were trying to let the industry catch up with our waterless focus from a sustainability point of view. So our entire marketing speak, everything we would say about the product during COVID had to completely change because nobody's going anywhere. They're certainly not getting on a plane. They do not care about liquid. It just... I was not able to foresee that as well as everything else. But I think it was a huge time for me to sit back and think about how far in the future I'd put our omni-channel plan and our slow price increases, not price increases, but larger products, price points. And I thought, how could I put that so far into the future? And look what happens. Like, this needs to be now. So it helped me change my pitch deck. I partnered up with Enterprise Ireland and they put me on a Dublin BIC funding and scaling program. I was probably a little bit further along for it, but it gave me a great opportunity to look at my pitch again, go through it in detail. Enterprise Ireland were really interested in helping me when I eventually was able to find an investor. And so it was a time where I just tried to network as much as I can. I connect with people on LinkedIn and eventually found a lot of really interested people. Again, a few lessons learned there. Fundraising, I think, is it's hard. It's hard to run the business and fundraise, as I'm sure most founders know. It's a different job. It's hard. It's soul destroying. It's, I suppose, like, part of it I did enjoy, but I hated how long everything took. That really bothered me. You know,
and how much it takes you away.
It takes you away. It does. And I had a lot of people wasting my time, which I, again, found don't let your time be wasted, but you're like, but this person's interested. I have to see it through. And
it's easier said than done.
It's easy. You think this person's interested and you're 3 months there. And honestly, that was a really expensive mistake that I don't know if I go back knowing what I know, because you still think there's a chance. You know, if somebody's taking time to meet with you, there's a chance. But actually, I think investors or angel investors, even if I'll put that in inverted commas, people who think they want to invest, don't realize what they cost you in leading you down the garden path.
Hope is dangerous.
Agreed.
And so then, did you end up going with the HPSU program or the high performance startup program?
So that's where I was kind of teetering, because I didn't really fit Enterprise Ireland's technical HPSU. I wasn't manufacturing in Ireland. My employment count was low, but the investment would have changed all of that for the company. So they were sort of there like, look, bring us the investment once you get it and we will go in. And I thought, sure, maybe I can do an MBA. I don't know what came over me, because I've never been to college. So I went to an MBA open night, and I was mid fundraising at the time, and they were like, "You'd be great." And I was like, "Really?" So before I knew it, I'm midway through an MBA somehow. It is amazing.
And so right now you're like chucked another massive plate in there, basically. So and how are you managing now with that other plate in the mix?
You know what? It's extremely stressful, but for the first time in a while, I feel like I'm challenging myself with like valuable things. So, you know, the challenging process of fundraising, sometimes you come away and you learn nothing. You think, well, that person was just a whatever. And what would I have done differently? I don't know. And I feel like I had an investor last year all the way up until contracts were signed and everything, just November actually. And I thought, well, look, if this goes through, I will be a better leader for recruiting. Like whatever happens, the MBA is going to add to my journey. It's going to take months for the stock to come in. Whatever happens, it'll be after the MBA probably. But anyway, the investment fell through in November again. Honestly, I could write a book at this stage. And the Enterprise Ireland match funding obviously is there. And if I can find, it's conditional. They can't lead the investment round. So I realized then that this is, like, nothing that's meant for you will pass you by, and it's better if someone pulls out everything signed, because otherwise you have a really expensive problem. So that's just the way it is. But I think I've had some incredible lessons learned on the MBA, and I'm meeting some incredible people. Like I was able to go to Yale, did a week in Yale as part of it, and just for me, having not had a degree, to be able to just leverage my time in business, to be getting these opportunities and still have my business in the background. What I ended up doing was, because it got so stressful, I don't know who told me that a full-time MBA isn't really full-time, because it is. Someone said that to me. I don't know what they were thinking, but I've now partnered with my UK wholesaler on like a strategic partnership for the remainder of my MBA. So they're looking after the UK market for me. So it's great. It means I can technically just pause. Now I'm still running the business, but at the same time, logistically, I can focus on the MBA for a short time. There's only 6 months left, so nearly there.
And then, then it's his final question then. 6 months down the line, finishing up, what are you kind of eyeing up, thinking about next?
You know, it's funny. I've always thought maybe during the MBA I might find a co-founder, because that has been the one barrier that I've found. Meeting investors, Enterprise Ireland even, everybody are like, co-founder though, it seems to be very valuable for people. And I can kind of see why, like, co-founders look less stressed. One of them is doing something, the other is...
It's nice just to be able to vent. To
vent. And I think you have someone who's good at what you're not, because you said earlier, like, there's a lot going on and you're not good at everything. Like, it's impossible. I think I would hope maybe there'll be someone strategic, get the investment over the line when I have the time to start that, when I'm dusted myself off again and go down that road, because the opportunity for the brand just grows in the background, and I'm not able to do it on my own, and I could keep going as I am, but I have such big ambitions to scale it. Like, we launched into Australia, the US is calling, like, that's there, but it needs funding and a team. I need a team, to make it work. So I realise that now.
You've done a huge amount on your own.
I wouldn't advise it to anyone listening. Don't do it on your own.
Listen, like, Pamela, just so good listening to your whole story. You're nothing but impressive, and there's no way you're not going to get that funding or the right match ultimately, and no doubt it will be in lots of different markets, because just your honesty and transparency to open up, and your just ability to get stuck in, and all those knockbacks, it's unbelievable. So, just fair play to you, and wish you all the best with the MBA and everything else with MoxiLoves. But thanks, Mel, for coming on and chatting with me, and best of luck with it all as well.
Thanks so much for having me.